The millionaire's daughter had never walked until he saw the nanny do something incredible. Lake Como, Italy. An autumn afternoon wrapped in mist, as if the air itself remembered. The Moretti Villa rested quietly on a hillside, its reflection mirrored on the still surface of the lake, every stone and leaf whispering of years gone by. Ethan Moretti, 42, a biotechnologist once hailed as one of the century's brightest minds, drove home earlier than usual. He had wrapped up routine meetings in Milan, yet an inexplicable pull urged him home, as if something was waiting for him inside that silent house. When he opened the grand entrance, what greeted him wasn't silence. It was laughter, a soft, crystalline laughter that rippled through the hallways like a forgotten melody. Ethan froze. How long had it been since he last heard that sound? He moved quietly down the corridor toward the living room. Afternoon light spilled through tall windows, weaving golden patterns across the marble floor. And then his heart stopped. Anna, his 4-year-old daughter, the child who had been sentenced to never walk again, was trying to stand, her weight shifting, toes trembling as if remembering a forgotten path. Her tiny toes trembled, yet held her steady. She reached forward, arms extended toward Sofia Reyes, the young caregiver who had arrived only 2 weeks earlier. Sofia said nothing. She only smiled, a gentle, glowing smile that seemed to carry infinite calm. "You're doing it, Anna." "One more step," she whispered. And then a lean forward, small, unsure, but real. No step yet, just the body, daring to trust. Another one followed. The sound of soft feet touching the floor echoed like a heartbeat of life itself. Anna giggled and fell into Sofia's waiting arms. Sofia lifted her, spinning her around in pure joy. Behind the door, Ethan stood trembling. He gripped the wooden frame to keep from collapsing. In that single instant, every theory, every diagnosis, every scientific certainty crumbled. He wanted to rush in, to ask 1,000 questions, but couldn't. Tears streamed uncontrollably down his face. His daughter, the child doctors had sworn would never walk, was walking. The sunlight streamed through the windows, catching Anna's hair, crowning her in a halo of light. Sofia held her high, both laughing, a sound so full of life it filled the entire house. Ethan closed his eyes. For the first time in 4 long years, he felt something he thought he had lost forever. Faith. He didn't yet understand what had happened, but he knew one thing for certain. His life had just changed forever. The last traces of sunset still lingered on the roof as Ethan stood in the hallway, his mind still reeling from what he had just witnessed. Anna's laughter echoed faintly through the villa, mingling with the soft rhythm of her tiny footsteps on the wooden floor. It was a sound he had thought he would never hear again. But when the door closed and Sofia led his daughter upstairs, silence returned, thick and heavy, like the weight of memory itself. From the outside, the Moretti Villa was a masterpiece of Italian design, weathered stone walls draped in moss, olive trees shading the veranda, the lake reflecting twilight like a mirror of time. People called it the House of Triumph, a symbol of the great man who had once been known as the Hand of Life. But only Ethan knew that behind its beauty lay a loneliness that no success could fill. Since the day Lucia died, laughter had never crossed these walls. She had left during a difficult birth, giving life to a fragile child caught between 2 worlds. Anna came too soon, so tiny that Ethan could cradle her in one palm. He had spent long nights beside the incubator, watching the blinking monitor lights like distant frozen stars, whispering silent promises to keep her alive. But when the doctors told him that she had severe brain damage, that Anna would never walk, his world fell apart. A man who once believed there was no limit science couldn't reach now found himself utterly powerless. He carried her from Rome to Zurich, from Paris to Berlin, searching for miracles in white coats and sterile labs. He hired the best specialists, bought the most advanced rehabilitation devices, turned part of his home into a private research center, where every mechanical hum carried a sliver of hope. But each test, each report, each cold medical verdict crushed it all. "You must learn to accept it, Mr. Moretti. Those legs will never walk." That sentence clung to his mind like a wound that would never close. Every night after the lights in Anna's room went out, Ethan would sit alone in his library, staring at Lucia's photo. Her gentle smile seemed to ask the same silent question. "Have you really done everything?" He never answered, because deep down he knew he could touch the stars, but he could never touch a miracle. And so, within that golden, magnificent villa, there remained only a man sitting quietly among beautiful walls, listening to his own heart turn slowly into silence. That night, Ethan stayed awake long after midnight. The wind from Lake Como hissed against the windows, whispering like the ghosts of old memories. He sat there in half-light, surrounded by stacks of medical reports and silent machines, wondering when his life had drifted so far from what it was meant to be. By morning, the villa gleamed as always, but no brightness could warm the chill inside its owner's heart. Since Lucia's death, more than a dozen nannies had passed through this house. They came, stayed briefly, and left quietly, carrying the same apology. "I'm afraid there's nothing more I can do." Some were too professional, clinical, all schedules and notes, no warmth. Others were too tender, breaking down each time Anna's small body trembled. None stayed long enough to realize that the little girl didn't need pity. She needed faith. Anna was extraordinary, fragile in body, but sharp and radiant in mind. She learned to read early, loved to draw, and often asked questions that left her father speechless. "Daddy," she once whispered, "if I can't walk, can I still learn to fly?" Ethan had smiled faintly, stroking her hair. "Maybe one day you'll find your own way," he'd said, though even he no longer believed it. Each time a new nanny left, the house grew colder. The soft whir of Anna's pink wheelchair, decorated with butterflies, became the only sound echoing through the hallways. Ethan often watched from a distance as his daughter gazed out the window toward the village below, where other children ran freely under the sunlight. The look in her eyes, half wonder, half quiet sorrow, pierced him deeper than any diagnosis ever could. He had grown so used to silence that it had become part of his breathing. He buried himself in conferences, projects, and scientific papers, drowning the ache with the noise of the outside world. People called him the visionary who changed modern medicine. But only he knew the truth, that behind every accolade stood a father who could not heal his own miracle. And every night, as the villa sank back into darkness, he could almost hear Lucia's voice again, soft and distant in his mind. "Ethan, she's still waiting for you to believe in the impossible." The days that followed slipped into a dull rhythm. Ethan woke, worked, returned home, ate in silence, and sank into the same quiet that clung to every corner of the Moretti Villa. The house had long accepted its fate, a place of perfection without breath, without hope. One morning, Mrs. Teresa, the elderly housekeeper, entered his study holding a slim folder. "Sir, the Elite Care Agency sent a new candidate's file. They say she has remarkable experience with children who have motor disabilities." Ethan looked up wearily. "Another one? We've gone through almost the entire list." "I believe she might be different," Teresa said softly. Her name was Sofia Reyes, 28, bachelor's in pediatric physiotherapy, experience working for several distinguished families with disabled children. Her resume was flawless, too flawless. Ethan skimmed the pages, unmoved. "Schedule the interview," he said flatly, "but let's not expect much." Sofia arrived on a Sunday morning, just as sunlight spilled across the olive trees. She wore a simple beige dress, her hair tied with a pale scarf, moving with a quiet grace as though she didn't want to disturb the air itself. Teresa opened the door while Ethan waited at the staircase, hands in his pockets, his expression the same mixture of control and fatigue he'd worn for years. What stopped him wasn't her appearance, but her eyes, deep, warm, steady. She met his gaze directly, without fear or flattery. "Thank you for allowing me to meet Anna," she said softly, her voice calm but sure, like someone who already knew why she was there. They sat in the living room, sunlight washing gently through sheer curtains. Ethan's tone was curt. "Do you really believe you can make my daughter walk?" Sofia smiled faintly. "I don't think of it that way, Mr. Moretti. I don't fix bodies. I tell them stories the mind believes." He frowned. "And what does that mean?" "Children don't heal through orders or data," she replied. "They heal through belief. The body listens to what the mind allows it to trust. When a child feels seen and heard, she begins to find her own way home." Her words rippled through the air, soft but unshakable. Ethan said nothing, yet something in his eyes flickered, an almost forgotten curiosity. He had heard every kind of theory in his life, but the way Sofia spoke wasn't abstract. It was conviction, disguised as gentleness. The door creaked open, and Anna entered in her wheelchair, pushed by Teresa. The little girl's eyes widened, studying Sofia with cautious wonder. Instead of leaning down like most adults, Sofia knelt until their eyes met. "Hello, Anna," she said kindly. "Do you believe in magic?" Anna tilted her head, lips curving shyly. "Magic? I've never seen any." "Then," Sofia whispered, "we'll go find it together, shall we?" In that single moment, Ethan saw something he hadn't seen in years, light in his daughter's eyes. Anna laughed, a true laugh, whole and bright. When the meeting ended, Sofia said goodbye with a line that stayed echoing in the room. "I don't promise miracles, but I believe they begin with the smallest things." Ethan stood motionless long after the door closed. He didn't believe in miracles, but he couldn't deny that something in the air had shifted. That night, when he checked on Anna, she was smiling in her sleep, whispering softly, "Sofia said I'll find my own magic someday." Ethan paused in the doorway, heart heavy and trembling. He didn't yet know what that magic was, but deep down, he felt it. Something had just begun to change. 2 weeks later, the Moretti Villa felt different. The morning light spilling through the tall windows no longer fell on silence. It danced on the laughter of a little girl. Since Sofia's arrival, the air had changed. Anna woke earlier, laughed louder, her cheeks glowing pink as though spring had returned to the middle of October. Sofia never called what they did exercises. She called them magic missions. Each morning, the playroom became a world of colors and imagination. Ethan, who at first merely passed by on his way to work, found himself pausing longer each day, watching quietly from the doorway as the two filled the room with light. "All right, Princess," Sofia said playfully. "Today's mission, butterfly legs?" Anna giggled. "Butterflies? My legs can't fly?" "That's why we'll teach them. Imagine your legs are two sleeping butterflies. You just have to wake them, gently." Sofia sat on the rug, holding Anna's small feet in her hands, swaying them softly like fluttering wings. She sang in a tender voice, "Wake up, little butterflies, the garden's calling outside." Anna laughed and tried to move her toes. They trembled, slightly, but enough to make Ethan freeze. He heard the voice of the doctor echoing in his mind. "Her neural connections are dead. There is no recovery possible." And yet, before his eyes, those dead connections were trembling to the rhythm of a lullaby. The next day came a new game. Swimming in the air. "You've never been in a pool, have you, Anna?" "No, I've only seen pictures." "Then today, we'll swim, without water." Sofia rolled out a blue mat. Pretend it's a summer lake. You're a tiny mermaid, and we'll learn to glide across the water with your own strength. Anna lay on her back, arms wide, legs pushing slowly through the air. She laughed, the sound like ripples breaking on a calm lake. Sofia counted softly, encouraging every small movement. Ethan leaned against the wall, heart pounding with each tiny kick. Each movement felt like an uprising, an act of rebellion against destiny itself. At night, Sofia had another ritual called the dancing toes. She sat by Anna's bed and told stories about a magical kingdom of toes. In her tales, characters like Brave Big Toe and Dreamy Little Toe learned to move together to break a curse of silence. Anna giggled, wiggling her toes without realizing that each tiny twitch was part of something greater, a spark of awakening. One evening, as Ethan walked down the hall, he heard bursts of laughter. He stopped at Anna's door. Sofia sat cross-legged on the floor, telling her story with animated voices, her eyes bright with life. Anna lay on her stomach, chin resting on her hands, eyes glowing. When the story reached its climax, she burst into laughter, and her legs moved gently, rhythmically, as if walking inside a dream. Ethan's breath caught. He had heard so many sounds in his life, machines beeping, doctors reading charts, wheels rolling across tile. But never this, the sound of his daughter's laughter in harmony with the movement of her legs. He wanted to dismiss it as reflex, but his heart whispered, "Something is waking up." From that night on, whenever Sofia entered the room, Anna's face lit up like the sun. Ethan never admitted it aloud, but he began finding reasons to stay home longer each morning, just to listen. And sometimes, watching them together, he realized something profound. Miracles weren't fairy tales. They were forming quietly, breath by breath, inside the very house he had once believed was lost to silence. December. The skies over Lake Como were pale silver, the air thick with the scent of coming snow. Another 2 weeks had passed since Sofia had begun her magic missions, and in that short time, the Moretti Villa had come alive again, like a body awakening from a long sleep. Ethan never said it aloud, but every time laughter drifted from his daughter's room, something in his chest shifted, faster, warmer, and perhaps more hopeful. That morning, Ethan flew to Geneva for an international medical conference, where he was to present his company's latest innovation. It was supposed to be a day of triumph, but all he could hear in his head was Sofia's calm voice. The body listens to what the mind believes. The trip was a success. His speech was applauded. Investors praised him as a pioneer of the next era of biotechnology. But when the lights dimmed and the applause faded, all he felt was emptiness. While others toasted with champagne, Ethan checked his watch and thought only of Anna's smile. He decided to return early. The night flight brought him back to Milan 2 hours ahead of schedule. Driving through the snowy hills toward the villa, he felt a strange pull in his chest, as if something was waiting for him at home. When he opened the villa door, he didn't see Sofia or Teresa. What he heard instead was laughter. Anna's laughter, bright and ringing, echoing through the marble halls like wind chimes in spring. Ethan followed the sound toward the playroom. The door was ajar, golden light spilling into the hallway, painting his face with warmth. He stopped, his hand trembling on the frame, breath caught mid-air. In the center of the room, Anna was standing, bare feet on the blue rug. Sofia knelt in front of her, arms open, eyes glistening like candlelight. "Slowly, Anna," Sofia whispered, her voice trembling with tenderness. "Feel the ground beneath you. Trust that it will hold you." Anna nodded. She took a deep breath and lifted her foot. One step, then another. The soft tap of her foot against the rug beat in Ethan's chest like a drum. He couldn't breathe. Everything around him blurred until all that remained was the impossible image before him, The child whom doctors had condemned to a lifetime of stillness, moving freely toward life. Sofia's smile widened. Anna laughed and fell into her arms, then turned, seeing her father frozen at the doorway, hands shaking. "Daddy!" She cried, her voice pure enough to shatter every barrier between reason and faith. Ethan sank to his knees. Tears flooded his eyes. Anna released Sofia's hand and slowly, carefully, walked toward him. Each tiny step, trembling but deliberate, carried her closer until she collapsed into his embrace. He held her as if she were made of light itself, his voice breaking as he whispered, "Thank you." No one would ever know whom he thanked, Sofia, God, or the miracle itself. All that mattered was this. In that room full of golden light, science and faith had finally become one. That night, snow fell like silver dust, covering the villa gardens in a soft white hush. Ethan couldn't sleep. After putting Anna to bed, he sat in the living room where firelight flickered gently across the walls. Sofia sat opposite him, hands loosely clasped on her knees. Between them stretched a silence, not awkward, but heavy, with what neither yet dared to say. Ethan stared at the untouched glass of wine, his voice rough. "I've seen strange things in my life, but never this. The doctors said it was impossible, and yet you made it happen. Sofia, who are you really?" She lowered her eyes, a faint, wistful smile brushing her lips. "I'm not a miracle, Mr. Moretti. I'm just someone who believes the impossible is still possible." After a pause, she continued, her voice calm and steady. "I used to be a scientist. I earned my PhD in neurorehabilitation at Oxford. Later, I worked at a research center in Zurich, focused on children with cerebral palsy and spinal injuries. We experimented with emotional neural stimulation, methods the medical establishment considered unscientific." Ethan's head lifted, surprise flickering in his eyes. "You worked in Zurich?" She nodded. "Yes, but then something happened. My younger brother, Matteo, was 16 when a car accident left him paralyzed. The doctors said he'd never walk again. I refused to accept it. I brought him into my study program. 3 months later, he stood on his own." Her voice softened, gaze drifting toward the fire. "I thought I had saved a soul. But when I submitted the results, the scientific board rejected them. They said it was an anomaly, a case that couldn't be replicated. One colleague even accused me of ethical misconduct. I was suspended, barred from further research." Ethan said nothing. In the glow of the fire, Sofia's face looked not defeated, but luminous, with conviction, not pride. "I left Zurich," she went on quietly. "I no longer wanted to prove anything. I just wanted to help the children the system had already given up on. Anna is the 7th I've worked with. The 6 before her all learned to move again. Some just a few steps, some more. But I never told anyone. I didn't want parents to believe in credentials. I wanted them to believe in their child." Ethan's fingers tightened around the glass. Questions swirled in his mind, but they all dissolved when he met her gaze. In Sofia's eyes burned a light he had never found in laboratories, a light that came from faith. He murmured, almost to himself, "I've spent my life believing in science, but maybe science is only half the truth." Sofia smiled softly. "Science and faith don't contradict each other, Mr. Moretti. They just haven't learned to listen yet." The fire crackled, casting 2 shimmering halos in their eyes. Outside, snow kept falling, silent, gentle, like miracles descending unnoticed. Small enough to seem invisible, yet powerful enough to change a life forever. The first morning after the miracle, Lake Como shimmered under the pale winter sun, so still and bright it seemed the world had been created anew. The sky was a silver mirror reflecting the Moretti Villa, now no longer a monument of silence, but the place where something beyond science had occurred. Ethan woke while frost still clung to the olive branches. He stood by the window, gazing at the garden where Anna had laughed, had walked, where only days earlier there had been nothing but despair. In his mind echoed Sofia's voice. The body listens to what the mind believes. He had never imagined one sentence could change his entire world. When he entered the dining room, Sofia was pinning Anna's hair, morning light spilling across their faces. Anna looked up, beaming. "Daddy, today I'm going to make my legs fly higher." Ethan laughed, the first genuine laugh in years. "Then we'll have to build an airport right here, won't we?" After breakfast, he invited Sofia for a walk in the eastern garden. The air smelled of snow and earth. They stopped before an old iron door covered in dust. Ethan unlocked it, pushing it open to reveal a dark, abandoned laboratory. "This used to be my lab," he said quietly. "A place where I believed I could cure everything. But I was wrong." He turned to her, voice steady. "Now, I want it to become a place that truly heals, children like Anna." Sofia hesitated, touching the cold stone wall. "You mean?" "I'll rebuild the entire east wing of the villa. It'll be a rehabilitation center based on your methods. I'll fund it, discreetly, until we have proof." "Ethan," she said softly, "you know the medical establishment will attack us." He smiled faintly. "They already have, but for once, I'm not doing this for my company or for my pride. I'm doing it for my daughter. And for you." Construction began the following week. The old architecture remained, but inside, Ethan installed advanced neurosensory systems and custom equipment from his own biotech firm. Sofia redesigned the layout with warmth, sunlight in every room, soft colors, music instead of machines. She called it the Room of Hope. Anna became their little muse, helping choose paint colors and naming each therapy space: the butterfly room, the ocean room, the dancing stars. 3 months later, their first patient arrived. Lucas, a 7-year-old boy with a spinal cord injury from a ski accident. His parents came in despair, expecting nothing. But Sofia only smiled and said, "We don't heal the body, we wake it up." Lucas's recovery was slow, fragile. At first, he could only move a finger. Sofia invented games: dolphin dive, climbing with your eyes, breathing with the heart. 6 months later, one spring afternoon, Lucas stood. Just 3 steps, but enough to make his mother cry, and enough for Ethan, watching unseen from the doorway, to realize he was witnessing a second miracle. Word began to spread, not through headlines, but whispers between desperate families. "There's a villa by Lake Como," they said, "where children doomed to wheelchairs have begun to walk." Every week more letters arrived, pleas from parents who had run out of options. Ethan read them late into the night, unable to look away from the hope inked into every word. Sofia would only say, "We can't save everyone, but every child saved is a world reborn." One evening, standing by the window overlooking the lake, Sofia asked quietly, "Aren't you afraid, Ethan? Doing something the world will call madness?" He looked at the shimmering water, his reflection faint in the glass. "I used to fear failure," he said softly. "Now I only fear not believing enough." And under that silent moon, they both understood. The miracle of Anna wasn't an ending. It was the beginning of something greater, a purpose that would one day make the whole world stop and remember. That sometimes miracles aren't born of science, but of the hearts brave enough to believe in them. In the months that followed, Villa Moretti was no longer a hidden sanctuary. The once quiet estate had become the eye of a storm. Rumors of children who walked again spread across Europe. Headlines screamed from front pages: "Miracle or hoax? Scientist defies modern medicine." The medical establishment erupted in outrage. Leading professors went on television, condemning the experiments. "This is pseudoscience." They're selling false hope. There is no clinical proof for their claims. But while the critics argued, thousands of desperate parents began to arrive. They came with medical files, faded photographs, and one last spark of belief. Every day, more letters arrived, pleas written in trembling hands. Please, help my child. The press swarmed the villa. Satellite vans lined the road, cameras pointed toward the gates. Sofia refused every interview, focusing instead on the children inside, where the real miracles were quietly taking place, far from the glare of fame. Ethan knew they couldn't stay silent forever. One evening, as snow drifted gently outside, he stood by the window overlooking the lake. Sofia joined him and whispered, "Maybe it's time to tell the world." He nodded. "If they need proof, we'll show them, not with words, but with life." Weeks later, the world witnessed a historic press conference. In a grand hall in Milan, Ethan stepped up to the podium as flashes exploded. He held no notes, only a small folded paper. His voice was calm, steady. "My name is Ethan Moretti. I've spent half my life believing science could do everything. But my daughter taught me that some things awaken only through love. Today, I am announcing the creation of the Moretti Foundation for Child Neurorehabilitation, and I am donating half of my fortune so that every child may have a second chance." Behind him, the screens lit up. Footage played. Anna, once in a wheelchair, now running through a sunlit garden. Then Lucas, taking his first steps, smiling. The audience fell silent, then burst into applause and tears. Reporters stood, overcome. That day, the world was divided. Some called Ethan a traitor to science, others a pioneer of hope. But amidst the noise and the headlines, one truth shone through the chaos. A flame had been lit. And in the hearts of countless parents, that flame had a name: faith. 5 years had passed since that historic press conference. Villa Moretti was no longer a secluded mansion by Lake Como. It had become the heart of a humanitarian medical revolution. From Italy, Sofia's rehabilitation method had spread across the globe. The Moretti Centers now operated in 10 countries, from Spain and Switzerland to Japan and Brazil. More than 900 children, once sentenced to wheelchairs for life, now stood, ran, and embraced their parents in tears of joy. The World Health Organization, WHO, after 3 years of independent study, officially recognized and recommended Sofia's method as a breakthrough approach in pediatric neurorehabilitation. The report, unveiled in Geneva, stunned the scientific community. The Moretti Reyes method demonstrates that love, emotion, and belief can activate neural potential beyond biological limitation. Sofia was now the scientific director of the International Moretti Centers and a world-renowned speaker invited to Harvard, Cambridge, and Tokyo University. Yet, whenever possible, she returned to the small therapy room by Lake Como, the place where it had all begun, to tell stories to new children. "You know," she would whisper, smiling, "every miracle starts with someone who dares to believe it can happen." Anna, the little girl who once sat in a pink wheelchair, was now 9 years old. Every step she took was living proof of Sofia's vision. She studied ballet, and in her first performance at La Scala, when the music swelled and she spun gracefully across the stage, Ethan couldn't hold back his tears. He realized he was watching a dream come to life. As for Ethan, the man once known for his cold mastery of biotechnology had transformed his entire company. No longer focused on pharmaceuticals, it now developed assistive technologies for disabled children, neural sensors, movement support robots, immersive motor simulation software. "We don't manufacture medicine anymore," he said in an interview. "We manufacture hope." At the villa by the lake where it all began, Sofia, Ethan, and Anna lived simply. Every evening they walked beneath the olive trees, watching the sunset turn the water gold. And in that light, One could see what the world had finally come to understand. True miracles don't belong to laboratories. They live in the hearts of those brave enough to believe in them. Time passed like ripples across Lake Como, soft, endless, carrying away the years, but leaving behind a peace that felt eternal. The villa, once filled with silence and sorrow, now echoed with laughter, the kind that fills every room with life. Over the years, through sleepless nights and countless small victories, Ethan and Sofia's bond grew naturally, slowly, gently, like spring returning to the lake. It wasn't sudden or dramatic, it was quiet, steady, inevitable. Two people who had once lost all faith had found it again, in each other. One golden autumn afternoon, Ethan proposed, not with diamonds, but with a small olive blossom he picked from the tree Sofia had planted when she first arrived. His voice trembled. "Since the day you walked into this house, everything changed. You didn't just save Anna, you saved me." Sofia's eyes filled with tears. "No, Ethan, you're the one who believed, even when no one else did." They were married in the garden by the lake, where Anna had taken her first steps. There was no grandeur, only sincerity. Anna, in her white lace dress, tossed petals down the aisle, while Sofia walked toward Ethan through sunlight and the scent of lavender. When he took her hands, he knew happiness didn't come from success. It came from this. A year later, Sofia gave birth to Mateo, a boy with brown hair and lake-blue eyes. When Ethan held him for the first time, tears streamed down his face. "He's healthy, Sofia. Another miracle." She smiled softly. "Not another miracle, Ethan. Just the continuation of the one we already believed in." Anna adored her baby brother. She pushed his stroller through the garden, singing lullabies Sofia once sang to her. Watching them, Sofia felt a peace she never thought she'd know again. And Ethan, hearing Anna call Daddy, watching Sofia cradle Mateo, thought, This is the greatest miracle of all." Their life was simple: breakfasts on the terrace, laughter at dinner, walks under the olive trees at dusk. One evening, Ethan whispered, "I spent half my life trying to heal the world with medicine, but you healed me." Sofia squeezed his hand. "We healed each other, Ethan, bit by bit." But one summer night, as the sun melted into the lake, Anna asked, "Mama, do you remember when I couldn't walk?" Sofia smiled, brushing her hair. "Of course, sweetheart, but what matters isn't that you once couldn't, it's how much you've learned since then." Ethan, holding Mateo, added, "Every child carries a miracle inside. They just need someone who believes enough to wake it up." Anna laughed. "Then Mama woke me up, and Daddy kept the miracle from falling asleep again." They laughed together, the kind of laughter that stays in the air even after it fades. In the garden of the Moretti Center, children ran, stumbling, laughing, radiant. Sofia watched them, her voice soft. "Do you see them, Ethan? Every laugh out there is a little miracle." Ethan smiled. "And together, they make the greatest one. Family." The sun sank behind the mountains, turning the lake to liquid gold. Anna chased Mateo across the grass, their laughter echoing. Sofia leaned into Ethan's shoulder, her eyes glistening with tears and peace. And in that quiet moment, they both knew the greatest miracle was never in the laboratory. It was here, in the human heart. As twilight fell, the villa lights glowed against the dark, warm, constant, alive.